After many long months of campaigning, the election of 1968 has finally come to an end. The election had polarized the country for months, and with the assassination of civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr., it spawned several riots throughout the nation. Many anti-war movements gained extreme popularity. The country was done with Vietnam and wanted a candidate that would finally bring their troops home and end the fighting. An anti-war protest had to be broken up outside the 1968 Democratic National Convention, which led to violent confrontation between the police and anti-war protesters. Johnson had become very unpopular with the American people due to his involvement in Vietnam, and because of this he would not seek re-election. The Democratic Party would choose Hubert Humphrey to represent them in this election. The party had gone through several struggles leading up to the election, such as the assassination of Robert Kennedy. Former Vice President Richard Nixon won the Republican primaries and chose Spiro Agnew to be his running mate. Nixon ran a campaign to bring back law and order, which he had felt was lacking when Johnson was president. The third party also had a large presence in the election, as former Governor George Wallace, who promoted segregation, was also running for president. Richard Nixon ended up winning both the electoral vote with 301 votes and the popular vote with 31 million votes. We have an exclusive interview with the president-elect. Here's what he had to say. Richard Nixon, congratulations on winning the election of 1968. What are your first goals as president?
I made a promise to win the Vietnam War. My first day in office will be spent bringing home as many troops as possible and bringing a peaceful end to the war.
What will you do to protect South Vietnam from future attacks from the North?
I will make sure the United States continues to send weapons and support to our allies in South Vietnam. The war Johnson handled this war in the past was a disaster.
Many people are taking to the streets and rioting, demanding more civil rights. What do you say to these activists?
I would like them to know that I am on their side. Everyone in this country deserves equal employment.
Thank you for the interview, Mr. Nixon. Best of luck as the president.
Youth's culture was shaped mainly by the income of new, more different music, a shift from the increasingly complacent rock and roll to more provocative albums, such as Bob Dylan's Highway 61 Revisited, The Beatles' Rubber Soul, and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and Jefferson Airplane's Surrealistic Pillow. Songs are aimed at popular success, but the musicians were increasingly self-conscious of themselves as artists and social critics. Music that criticizes American society found a smaller audience through the folk music revival in a few big cities and university campuses. In an artist revolution, the Beatles opened the door to a new kind of rock music. They capitalized their immense popularity to begin a career of artistic experimentation. In San Francisco, a new psychedelic rock scene took its name from drugs such as LSD, inviting for more explicit treatment of sex and illegal drugs than was previously accepted in pop music. Artists such as Jimi Hendrix and Lou Reed brought driving rhythms and sexually aggressive stage personalities, blended tensions of big cities with influences from white rock and roll and black rhythm and blues. On March 16, 1968, Charlie Company, part of the American Division's 11th Infantry Brigade, entered the village of My Lai, located in the Quang Ngai province, believing the village was a stronghold of the Viet Cong. Army commanders had advised the soldiers of Charlie Company that whoever they found in the area is considered VC or VC sympathizers and ordered to destroy the village. Led by Lieutenant William Calley, the soldiers found no VC and came upon a village of mostly women, children, and older men. The villagers were rounded up into groups while their huts were inspected. When the huts were checked, Lieutenant Calley ordered his men to shoot the villagers. Sergeant Michael Bernhardt stated, "I saw them shoot an M79 grenade launcher into a group of people who were still alive, but it was mostly done with a machine gun. They were shooting women and children, just like anybody else." The massacre ended after Warrant Officer Hugh Thompson, an Army helicopter pilot, landed his aircraft between the villagers and the soldiers. A total of 504 people, 182 women, 17 of those pregnant, and 173 children, including 56 infants, fell victim to the massacre. Minutes after giving his final speech at the Ambassador Hotel after winning California's primary election, Senator Robert Kennedy was shot several times by 22-year-old Sirhan Sirhan. Kennedy left the podium in the Ambassador Hotel, accompanied by Radford Johnson and Roosevelt Grier. While leaving through a rear exit, Sirhan Sirhan stepped forward with a rolled-up campaign poster hiding his .22 caliber revolver. He was about a foot away from Kennedy when he fired several shots at the senator. Grier and Johnson took Sirhan to the ground only after 5 bystanders were wounded. Kennedy was taken to the Hospital of the Good Samaritan to undergo surgery. He was pronounced dead 26 hours after the shooting at the age of 42. Kennedy's remains were taken to St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan for 2 days of public viewing before a funeral mass was held on June 8th. His funeral train traveled from New York City to Washington, D.C. Throngs of spectators lined the route to view the journey. His body was interred at night at Arlington National Cemetery near his brother John. I'm here in the black-dominated neighborhood of Watts, Los Angeles on the 4th day of the most violent riot that I have ever seen. According to local police, what started off as a routine traffic stop turned violent after 2 policemen and 2 black men broke into a scuffle in which we now believe that a crowd began to gather around the situation. That crowd has turned into what looks like about 34,000 people who have come out against the police, equipped with rocks and bottles and what seems like Molotov cocktails along with sniper shots in the distance. Earlier we saw police surround the mosque, making arrests of those inside, and later 2 fires broke out, destroying the whole building. From where I'm standing now, I believe I see the National Guard arriving down the street, and now a group of protesters is forming on the other side of the street. I don't believe I'm in a good place right now, so let's bring it back to you, Zach.
Coca-Cola has the taste you never get tired of. Always refreshing. That's why things go better with Coke after Coke after Coke.
The Vietnam War has been more destructive to the United States than to the Viet Cong. Families have been broken due to the many casualties the war has taken. Even though young Americans keep dying in Vietnam, President Johnson has not made any effort to completely withdraw. He says he does not want to ruin the character of the country by abandoning South Vietnam. Say that to the 50,000 American troops who gave their life, many of whom were just drafted. This war has been a complete waste of resources, and our country can barely just support to keep South Vietnam safe from the North. Americans have moved on from the war and just want the fighting to stop. Yet Johnson continues to insist on sending in even more support. Until the Viet Cong touch American soil, I see no need for the country to get involved in yet another pointless fight.